can have teams that you have an affinity for or an attachment to that aren't your own favorite team. Like, I'm too old now. I can't change away from the Chicago Bears even if I wanted to. Like, I'm in it for life. For you younger Bears fans, run away and hide. Find a new team and do it now, because it's not going to get any better. Promise you. It doesn't. But, I do have other teams that I feel some type of emotional attachment or connection to. Some of that is I hate them so much with a passion, and others it's I love to hate on them. And there is no team that I have enjoyed loving to hate on more in recent years than the Cleveland Browns. Like, they were my skid marks. I always knew no matter what that I could come on here and poke fun at something that stupid organization did. Or I could mock them, or I could make fun of them, or I could help along with their push towards the winless season, like all of these wonderful, glorious, splendiferous, magnificent things. And now, they might not be the skid marks anymore. And I can't lie, it's a little depressing. On the one hand, I'm happy for them, but on the other hand, selfishly, how dare they? How dare the Cleveland Browns decide they want to start winning games this year? That's crap! Crap! Because you can certainly say the Kevin Stefanski hire paid immediate dividends. And I know I was on record saying that I didn't think it was a great hire. And, it just seemed like, why are you bringing in the guy that only got so-so performance out of Kirk Cousins, who offense didn't do shit in the divisional round last year against the 49ers? Why are you bringing him in to work with Baker Mayfield? Like, there are reasons for saying what I said. But some of you Browns fans certainly fairly have called me out and said, well, what do you think about the Stefanski hire now? I think you got this one wrong. I may have. I very well may have. I think it is also important to remember that time will tell, because Matt Nagy was 12-4 with the Chicago Bears in his first season in 2018, and look at where we're at now. Don't count your chickens entirely before they're hatched. Now, you can be optimistic, and you probably should be, but don't get too carried away yet. Because also remember that Doug Marrone once took the Jaguars to the AFC Championship game, and they had a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter in Foxborough against Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, and the New England Patriots. And look where he's at now, unemployed. Just saying. But you look at the Browns, they were 5-3 heading into the bye, so you're certainly starting to see some of the impacts of Stefanski. And let's be clear, infinitely better than anything you had out of Freddie Kitchens or Hugh Jackson or any of these other bums and scrubs that came before him. And then especially after the bye, like, you're looking at them at 5-3 and you're saying, okay, this is a good team, but how good of a team are they? They respond by winning 4 straight after the bye. You're like, okay, they're now 9-3 with 4 weeks to go. This is a really good Browns team. And they certainly were. Even with that, it's crazy, like the way it worked out in the AFC this year, that they had to win against Pittsburgh in Week 17 when Pittsburgh really didn't have anything to play for in order to go 11-5 and even be a wild card team and even make the playoffs. But I will say this, after all that time, was it 2002, back in the Kelly Holcomb days? Was that the last time the Skidmarks made the playoffs? Like, it's got to feel good, Browns fans. It's got to feel real good. That's almost 2 decades. And you didn't do it with a veteran-laden, expensive, old-ass, washed-up team at the end of their rope. You did it with a young team, with a new head coach, with a young quarterback, young skill talent on offense, and young players on defense, where you feel like you still have holes to fix. And you do. You absolutely do. Where you could potentially feel like your best football is ahead of you. Especially when you look at having that road wildcard win against the Steelers. Like, you made Big Ben look every bit as washed up, as done as he is. Like, that's something for a Browns team to go on the road, win a playoff game. You got a lot of reason for optimism. And maybe it depends on your perspective in terms of how the season ended. Like, to me, I looked at it as it was a Skidmark-style loss in the divisional round against the Chiefs. Mahomes went out in the second half. That game was there for the taking. It absolutely was there for the taking, and the Browns couldn't get it done. like opportunity was staring you in the face. Lady Luck and Fortune was shining down on you. And Stefanski coached scared. And that's what it comes down to, flat out. You could always talk about things like missed calls or penalties or any number of things. You could make all types of excuses. And that's what those are. Those are excuses. What you can't make justifications, excuses, or rationales for is why a coach would be in a spot like that and be so afraid of his quarterback that just a couple of years ago your team took number 1 overall. I mean, he flat out coached scared. Now, the great thing is you can make mistakes like that, learn from them, grow from them, improve, get better, and next time around you're in that situation, handle things entirely differently. But let's be clear. The Browns were scared of Baker in that divisional round game. They coached scared. They played scared. That's why they lost. So you can talk about all that optimism. You talk about everything else. But it should be a pretty concerning thing that your guy that's supposed to be the franchise guy, that's supposed to be that dude, your team was scared of him in the fourth quarter. There was no other spin that you could put on it. That's what happened. And you saw that throughout the regular season. I mean, you're playing to your strengths by leveraging Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in the running game as much as they did. So I don't fundamentally have a problem with that. They were third in the league in rushing yards a game. Like, they had one of the truly great rushing attacks in the league. Baker, as a result, no small part due to that, and some updates and adjustments made up to the offensive line personnel. You know, he made all 16 starts. He was there for both of the playoff games. He was more good than great, though. I mean, to me, he was more of a game manager that you could have make some plays. You more likely look at him right now, still early in his career, mind you, but you look at Baker right now and you say more of a guy that you can win with than a guy that you win because of. And let's be clear, that doesn't necessarily make him a bust. That could make him a bit of a disappointment, especially when you're looking at a guy like a Josh Allen being in the same draft class, being an MVP caliber candidate. You know, when you take a guy like Baker, number 1 overall, you don't expect to have a glorified game manager, which is what you felt like you got with him in 2020, especially in the playoff game against the Chiefs. Now, certainly things didn't totally go to plan, as you had OBJ for only 7 games, but you had enough time to figure things out and adjust to his absence. Defensively, they were top 10 against the run, but bottom third of the league against the pass. Myles Garrett had a typically really good season, finished with 12 sacks. Olivier Vernon, opposite him, had 9. But you could really see where, to me, where the speed and overall talent was just lacking in the back end of that defense, both in the linebacking core and the secondary. And they've got to get better there. Like, even if Baker takes a step forward in next season and their offense gets a little better, a little more balanced in terms of their ability to damage you in the passing game, they've got to get more athletic, more talented in their linebacking core and their secondary if they want to be a true deal contender. Now, as you go into this offseason, like a lot of Browns fans, obviously, are going to see reasons for optimism and hope. And I'm not here to sit there and say that you shouldn't have it. But let's also be clear, is that you never know what's going to happen from one season to the next. You could think that, hey, we'll go next year and make it even further in the playoffs. You could. You absolutely could. Or you could end up with some injuries or some poor player inconsistency, bad coaching, and be 7-9 or 8-8 and totally out of the playoffs. That also is very likely to happen. I'm not damning you to it. I'm not saying that is going to happen. It's just temper the expectations a little bit in terms of automatically assuming that it's going to get better. You can feel good about what happened, but I don't think you should feel too good because this team potentially could have done more. And their lack of faith in their quarterback is why they didn't do more. Which brings you to one of the big decisions in the offseason. What are you going to do with Baker Mayfield? Are you going to pick up his 5th-year option? I would assume the Browns at least are going to pick up the 5th-year option, but are you ready to really tie big money to him? I don't know about all of that. You've got some cap space. You know, free agents like Olivier Vernon, Larry Ogunjobi, B.J. Goodson, Rashad Higgins, Carl Joseph, Kevin Johnson. I can go through the laundry list of some of the guys. But a couple of guys there, like Vernon, are you going to bring back? Higgins, are you going to bring back? Ogunjobi, are you going to bring back? You know, those are probably some of the more notable targets in terms of guys that they want to retain in free agency. But I look at this team and you say, what do they need to do to address, to get better, to potentially take that next step forward in 2021? I look primarily at the defense. Like offensively, unfortunately, I could say, oh, get OBJ healthy. Or get rid of him and find somebody that will replace him. That would be nice. But I look at this team offensively and I'm saying, you know what? They could do a little bit more, but they're in this awkward situation where the only way they're going to be able to do more is if Baker does more and he develops. Like, that is the number one team need, is Baker needs to be better. And you're going to think I'm trashing on Baker because you're not listening to what I'm saying, maybe. I'm not trashing Baker. I'm just making statements of fact. You take a guy number one overall, you don't want him to be like average or just above average. You want him to be really damn good, great, special. Maybe you see an occasional flash of really good, great, special, and that's fair to say, but I don't think you can say that on a consistent basis. And Kevin Stefanski certainly wouldn't, because of the chicken shit way that he coached in the divisional round game against the Chiefs in the second half. They could have won that game. They should have won that game, and they did not, and it lay squarely on his shoulders. But in terms of this team, if they are going to be this team that is built first around the running game, and they're going to do a lot with the running game, and they're going to make Baker more of a glorified game manager, then you must beef up that defense, and you must have it take a big step forward in 2021. They need speed at linebacker. They need speed and talent there so bad. I don't know that they automatically address it in round number one, but I would be surprised if they're not gearing towards that. I also look at their secondary. You could say, hey, we'll see what Grant Delpit does coming off of the injury where he missed all of this season. Maybe, but why are you going to wait for that? Like, if you feel like you can get somebody that can play next to him, or you can feel like you could get somebody that's even better, then why would you be opposed to addressing the safety position? You know, do you think Denzel Ward is really special? No. I would certainly hope not. I think, again, they need something more at the corner position. Could also use some complementary edge rushers to go opposite of Myles Garrett. You know, because you've got a Myles Garrett there. I would like to see that Browns team be a little more potent with their defensive line, because if they do, you know, this could be a defense that could start to have some moments where they scare you a little bit. It's both exciting and heartbreaking that the Browns play better in 2020. They could do one of three things this upcoming season. They could kind of stay where they are, be a 10-11 win team, make the playoffs, but be happy with an early exit. They could take a big step forward because they've beefed up the defense, and or Baker takes a big step forward in 2021, and this team becomes a little scarier in the AFC. Or they take a step back because nothing is the same from one year to the next, and then you're wondering what the hell you really got here. I know what I'm rooting for. Am I really rooting, like, selfishly? I'm not trying to hate on your Browns, folks, but do I really want the Browns to win a Super Bowl? Hell no. I miss my Skidmarks, and I want them back.